Today is our second day of solving literal equations. Yesterday we talked about that your only job is to get the variable you're solving for by itself, and everything else goes on the other side. So when you're solving, you ask yourself two questions. The first, what operations are happening to the variable that I'm solving for? So what operations are happening to the variable that I am solving for? The second question is, once you know what's happening, how do you undo those operations? So we know about order of operations, which is PEMDAS, parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. When we put the things together, we go in that order, but when we solve, we go backwards. So when we are solving a literal equation, we go in the order that you see here. Okay. First one, again, we're asking what operations are happening to the variable you're solving for, and how do you undo those? So we are rewriting to solve each equation for x. All right, here's our x. This is what we're trying to get alone. That guy. That x is being it's right next to the a, so it's being multiplied by a, and then b is being added. Okay, and it goes in that order because order of operations says that the multiplication division happens first, and then the addition and subtraction. So that's why I said multiplication and then addition. So to undo it, I go backwards, right? I have to undo the minus b, I have to subtract b first, and then I will divide by a. So first thing I undo, and again, you have a balancing line. We're just trying to get x alone, kind of like pretend these are numbers. Subtract b so that this cancels out, which means all I have left over here is ax. C and b are not like terms, so we just write them separately. C minus b. And now a is being multiplied. It's just like when we have a number in front, but it's not a number now. It is a letter, still being multiplied. So to undo that, I divide by a on both sides. Looking at the next one, again, we're trying to get x alone. So we actually have two of them. Let's look at what's happening to x. X, this is a really weird one because there are two x's. It was like distributed. It has been multiplied to both d and minus w. That's an example of distribution that's already happened. So it was multiplied by d minus w. I know, super weird. And then it was distributed. So to undo that, I'm going to undistribute. I'll show you how in a second, which is a fancy name for that is factoring, but undistribute and then divide by d minus w. Notice how I'm just doing the opposite of what I have here. Multiply, divide, distribute, undistribute. Figure out what's happening and then go backwards in the opposite order. Draw your balancing line. The first thing that happened is that we were multiplied by x minus w, d minus w. So the first thing I said we need to do is undistribute, which means that we're going to take x back out and then put parentheses again. If you see 2 of something, it's been distributed. So if I take x back out and remove it, factor it out, then in parentheses I have d minus w. This is what it looked like before it was distributed. Okay? And now we're almost done. This is an example of multiplication. So to undo it, I divide. I'm going to divide by this entire parentheses, d minus w. Divide by d minus w, and you're done. We write our final answer as this. X is now alone because these canceled out. It's z divided by d minus w. So if you see 2 of the same variable, like you saw 2 x's, you had distribution, you have to undistribute when you see that. Cancels out in front. Just a few more examples. I'm not going to talk about all the steps on this. We'll solve it out and I'll explain why as I go. The formula for interest is I equals PRT. All 3 of those, PRT, they're being multiplied because they're right next to each other. P times R times T. We are solving it for R. So we're trying to get this one alone. I might rewrite it. I equals PRT. On the right-hand side, all you have is a bunch of multiplication. To undo multiplication, you divide. So I can divide by both P and T on both sides, which cancels out that multiplication. So you're actually done. I'm told that I divided by PT is R. Finished. Because R is by itself and everything else that we don't want to see is on the other side. The formula for area of a triangle is A equals 1/2 times base times height. You may have heard this before. And you are solving for H. So I'm solving for that one. I'll go ahead and rewrite it again. A equals 1/2 times base times height. Remember, when you have stuff right next to each other, it means multiplication. So we are solving. Okay, to undo the fraction, you've got division by 2. So you're going to multiply by 2 on both sides, which cancels that out. You're left with 2a equals 1bh. Now, we don't really need this 1 since it doesn't change anything, so I'm going to actually get rid of it. It doesn't change the equation. We're solving for h, so now we divide by b. Those cancel out, so we get 2a divided by b equals h. H is alone, everything else is on the other side. You are done. And the last one, this is a standard form of a linear. I don't really need you to know that so much as I need you to solve for y. We are getting this variable alone and everything else needs to move to the other side. So I will rewrite it. Okay. Getting y by itself, everything else needs to move. The first thing I'm going to move, this is actually just like we did yesterday with literal equations. So we'll move the x term first. We can actually move all of this at once. So I'm going to subtract ax all at once, which cancels it out. It's a positive, it's out in front, I can subtract it. This is just like when you had something like 2x or 5x. We are allowed to take it away. So by equals c minus a times x. Now b is being multiplied, so I divide by b, which cancels it out. So my final answer is c minus ax divided by b is equal to y. Y is by itself, and everything else is on the other side.